It's nice. There's room to breathe today. There's not a lot of basketball at all. There's baseball kind of getting started. Football's over. These are one of those rare days in sports talk radio where there's not a whole lot of immediate things to react to. So you can take that big picture 30,000-foot view. And in putting the show together today, that's kind of exactly what we are going to do. So let's waste little time. Let's get it started.
Time for our top story of the day. It's the Daily Special.
It's the All-Star break in the NBA. The All-Star game festivities will take place over the weekend. The Suns will next be in action Thursday when they'll take on the San Antonio Spurs in San Antonio. And so, like I mentioned at the top, this is our opportunity to take a step back, to look at things from the 30,000-foot view, to see the landscape around the NBA. You're not reacting to games. You're not reacting to a lot of news. It is quiet right now. So it allows us to take that big picture approach. And so you're seeing people throw out grades. Let's grade everybody's first half or grade everybody's run up to the All-Star break. And for me, in school, college, high school, when you got an F on something, it always felt harsh, right? An F. You just associated that with disappointment. Even if you deserved the F, it hit you differently. It hit you differently than a D or a C did, right? Like a C or a D is not great. A C or a D is just kind of skating by, but you felt okay with that. You felt like you could at least go home. Mom and dad wouldn't get too upset with you. The F, though, you knew there was going to be a lot of questions. You knew there was going to be an interrogation. You were going to have to answer some questions that you probably didn't have the answers to. And for me, I always associated with getting an F on something to my lack of effort, my lack of trying, my lack of caring. If I got an F on something, it was very rare, not to toot my own horn, but Fs, I didn't mess around with Fs. But if I did something that saw me get a failing grade, I could always look internally and say it was a lack of effort. It was a lack of trying. I should have studied a little more. I should have done a little more on this assignment. Because how hard is it truly to get a passing grade, to get a C, to get a D? How hard is it really to do that? If you get an F, it's probably because you didn't try. Yet the Phoenix Suns, The Athletic put out a story today giving out their grades for every team as we enter the All-Star break. And the Phoenix Suns, just a big, fat, bold F. That's what I saw this morning when I pulled up that story. Oh, we're grading all the teams. I got to see what they give the Phoenix Suns. Because you know, when you click on that story, it's not going to be a good number. You're not going to be surprised that they get a C+. You know there's sort of there's rules of engagement of I'm going to click on this story. It's going to be a bad grade and I'm going to react to it. That's how I felt clicking on the story this morning. And Doug Holler wrote a blurb about the Phoenix Suns, and I'm going to read it to you and we'll react. But an F is what they got. And here's what Doug Holler said. Quote, a team with the league's most expensive roster, one with 2 superstars, has no business hovering below 500. No business fighting to make the playoffs. The Suns aren't a title contender, but they should be. They still have time to make a push. The 6th spot in the West remains within range, but they've done little to show that they are capable of the consistency required to get there, end quote. Is there anything about that quote that feels too harsh? I said an F always felt to me like it was a harsh grade, that I probably could have gotten a D on that writing assignment. Maybe I caught the teacher on a bad day or something. It always felt like an F was too harsh. Is there anything in that assessment that was too harsh? Is there anything in there that feels like we're picking on the Phoenix Suns? No. Do you want to know why it doesn't feel harsh? Because all of it's true. It's true that they have the most expensive roster in the NBA. It's true that they have 2 superstars. It's true they have no business being 2 games below 500 as we sit here today. It's true they have no business right now being on the outside looking in of the Western Conference playoffs. Playoffs started today. They wouldn't even be a play-in tournament team. Is it untrue that they aren't a title contender? Again, it's not harsh because it's true. There's no name calling. We're not picking on anybody. We're not singling out the performances of Kevin Durant. We're not singling out Devin Booker. We're not singling out Bradley Beal. It would be one thing if this story said Kevin Durant needs to be a better leader. He's putting up all these numbers, but it's an empty stat sheet because they're not winning. They're looking for a leader. It's not Kevin Durant. It's never been Kevin Durant. And going through all the other times he hasn't been a leader in his career at his different stops. That would be, okay, that's a little harsh, right? Kevin Durant's doing everything in his power. Devin Booker, if you wanted to criticize the fact that he's on another coach, another era of Suns basketball that he is the center of, and yet the results aren't there, that might be a little bit of picking on Devin Booker. If you pick on Bradley Beal for not waiving his no-trade clause, it feels like you're kind of picking a little bit on Bradley Beal. He moved to the bench. He hasn't caused any issues. He didn't pull a Jimmy Butler. He didn't do any of that. We spent weeks, months discussing landing spots for Bradley Beal, day after day, segment after segment. I know there were some people out there that were tired of this show being 2 straight hours of Suns talk. But you know what? The team forced us in that direction with the constant conversation about Bradley Beal. So if that's what we focused on, yeah, maybe a little harsh. We're picking on the Suns. None of this is harsh. You're not singling anybody out. There's no name calling. It is just a fair, realistic look at what this Suns season has become. And it all boils down to spending money doesn't always equal success. It doesn't guarantee you a Western Conference Finals appearance. It doesn't guarantee you a trip to the NBA Finals. It doesn't guarantee you any of that. But I'll tell you what it should guarantee. It should guarantee way more than this. A team that is spending this much money, both with their salary cap and the taxes associated with the roster. A team that is paying this much money needs to be better than 26 and 28. And so they deserve all of the criticism that is being thrown their way. All of it is warranted. Nobody is claiming anymore about needing to see this team win a championship. The criticism right now around this team is you shouldn't be this bad. We now know you're not a title contender, but you shouldn't be this bad. I should be guaranteed more than 2 games below 500 and the 11th team in the Western Conference. The Suns are only in front of 4 teams in the West: San Antonio, Portland, Utah, New Orleans. That's it. Those are the only teams the Suns currently sit in front of. 2 of those teams are actively tanking. New Orleans and Utah, I would say, are actively tanking. New Orleans just traded Brandon Ingram. They're actively tanking. Utah, asset accumulation mode. San Antonio, they're making moves to try to be relevant. It's more of a next year and beyond play, but they might make some noise here post All-Star break. Portland, I just watched Portland beat the Suns 2 games in a row, but luckily the Suns still sit in front of them in the standings. That's it. You spending this much money should guarantee that you're in front of more teams than the 4 that I just mentioned. It should guarantee that you avoid the play-in tournament. You did that last year. You won 49 games last year. You avoided the play-in tournament. And I would argue your roster is better this year than it was last year. I don't think there's any question about it. This roster is better than it was last year. The Suns' total tax bill, salary plus the taxes associated with it, is $366 million. It is the most in the NBA. That is the dollars that they are going to pay out. The rest of the top 10, Minnesota, Boston, the Lakers, the Knicks, the Bucks, the Nuggets, the Warriors, the Mavericks, the Heat. Do you know what all of those teams have in common other than the Phoenix Suns? Those teams all have a play-in spot at least. Boston, New York, those are your top-tier teams in the East. Denver, the Lakers, those teams are much better than a play-in tournament. 5 of those 9 teams that I just mentioned, so more than half, are avoiding the play-in altogether. They're a top 6 team in their conference. And the Suns can't even hit the low bar of being one of the top 10 teams in the Western Conference. So as we have a chance to reflect, bunch of time off, no basketball until Thursday of next week. 54 games in the rearview mirror, only 28 to go the rest of the way. With that chance to reflect, it is very clear to all of us, they deserve that F grade. There is no, no. They deserve an F for being 2 games below 500, for not being able to be a play-in tournament team, despite having the highest tax bill in the NBA, when the next 9 teams on the list all at least are in the play-in conversation. Half of them, more than half of them, are doing better than that. 5 of those 9 teams are top 6 in their conference. So you may think it's a little harsh. I don't think it's harsh. It is the truth. It is the reality of the situation. This team, as we hit the All-Star break, has been a massive disappointment. And when you are spending as much money as this team is spending, we all need to see more. We deserve to see more. And they deserve the criticism for us not being able to see more.